OK, this is a pay-per-view with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Mike Salem. Mike, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. But it's been a pretty difficult week, I think, for a lot of the country.
It has. And before we go to the front pages, why don't we go through the week and just have a think about everything that's happened? I personally think that there has been a significant concern about the police racially discriminating against white kids. I appreciate they don't deliberately do it, but it's because of an effort to try and be so inclusive that they've actually gone so far the other way. I believe that all that has happened here is just we found a middle-class kid, a kid going to university, and it's an egregious example. I don't think that this is something that's massively different to anything that that we knew about before, or am I wrong?
It is very sad to see what has happened, and I'm glad that the police has apologised, and the Prime Minister even said that what has happened was sickening. I mean, I feel for the family first, because no family should have to go through what has just gone through, especially in the media out there. I mean, it's just horrible. And there are some really serious questions that need to be addressed.
You know, Andre says they don't deliberately do it, but we found the NPCC guidance. It is actually official policy to discriminate between...
So allow me to pick my words better. They don't think of themselves as racist.
Exactly. They're actually trained by the manuals, and it just becomes second nature to them. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like in North Korea. People, that they pretend so much that they love the leader that in the end they do. So it's the same with the police. They're so programmed with this thing that in the end it becomes their... And there's probably a niggling thought in the back of their mind where they know it's wrong, but their default position is to, well, in this case, arrest the white guy who's laying on the floor in agony, saying he's been stabbed and can't breathe.
I think the problem is common sense was not exercised. I think if I see someone who is distressed on the street...
but that's why it wasn't, because they're trained default.
Yeah, I mean, even if I see someone distressed on the street, putting aside my presumptions, yeah, someone had a good night out, maybe a bit drunk, but if someone's not well, my first duty of care is to look after them, even if they're on the right side, on the wrong side. And I think they did check up on him eventually after 3 minutes, but 3 minutes was 3 minutes...
Well, they possibly killed him because, you know, they did say he might die anyway. Well, they said he would die, although they're looking into that again. But he might have lasted 4 or 5 hours or maybe not have died. They yet to find out. But they handcuffed him after he'd been stabbed in the chest, which would dislodge. I mean, I'm not a medical expert, but I know that when someone's in a serious... You don't move them, especially if there's veins or spinal cord injuries. You just don't drag them and handcuff their hands
and the point that we made earlier is I don't have any medical knowledge, and neither does Asher, but I don't think it's hard to imagine that if somebody's been stabbed in the chest 5 times and then you get them to put their arms behind the back, that therefore effectively would exacerbate any injury on the chest, wouldn't it? One would assume, because I mean, when I do it to myself, if I attempt to put my arms behind my back, it naturally puffs my chest out and stretches the skin, and if there was a hole there, that hole would become larger.
Well, and the other point about that is he was pretty much dead a few seconds after from the woman that I think it was a policewoman who said, well, his pupils aren't reacting, which is one of the signs of death. So they possibly hastened it. So, anything else to say about this? Do you think it's a pivot point and things will change now?
I hope so. I mean, it's very distressing. You know, I was watching the video on the train, and I was trying to contain myself, but it's really hard.
What do you think about Nigel Farage? Because Starmer's saying he's using the family's grief. Well, that's actually what Starmer's doing at that point. And I think Nigel Farage was right to talk about the cold rage. Because it's what 90% of people feel about
So
this.
what did he say? White cold rage? Oh, no, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Newsnight made that up.
Yeah. And had to apologise today and take it off iPlayer.
I think the priority should go to the family at the end of the day, because I think what has happened is...
See, Mike, I've got to be honest with you. I strongly disagree with you on that point. And I'll tell you the reason. I made this point earlier, and I want to be, first of all, very clear. My thoughts, and as I say, my thoughts, but more importantly, my prayers, are with the family. But this is a huge issue. This is an issue of a police force so hell-bent on political correctness that it has become racist against people. We don't know how many thousands of people have been wrongly accused of racism, which is like catching leprosy in our modern society because you are such a social pariah. And we don't know whether this is going to continue or whether it's going to stop. I think what we have to say is, with the greatest of respect and with the greatest of compassion, Mark Nowak, we don't agree that this is something that should be looked at in a calm and measured way. We actually think that this is something that should rightly cause outrage and has caused outrage. And we are deeply concerned that it might be my nephew or my niece who is the next person to be murdered on the street on the grounds that you can get away with it if you accuse them of racism. That is a huge danger. And with respect, once again, and people are going to be critical of me for saying this, you know, Henry Nowak is dead, right? Henry Nowak is not going to cease to be dead. We now need to worry about the next kid that's going to be put in this position. And believe me, this very night, there will be kids walking down the street who've done nothing wrong, and somebody will pick up the phone and say, he called me the P word, he called me the N word, and those young people will have their lives destroyed because it's almost like a spell that you can weave on the police. If you phone up the police and go, oh, I've had a bit of an argument with my neighbour, oh, he called me the N word, suddenly they all stream into action. It's almost like a special privilege foisted upon.
And it doesn't work the other
people.
way. Like if they stab, you know, and kill a white guy and it's racist, that won't come up in court. You know, like with the rape gangs, they were obviously racial. There was aggravating circumstances. You know, they were calling them white this and white that. That never came up and was an aggravating factor. It doesn't work one way. It only works the other way.
I think this is the problem. The problem is the policing has not been consistent. And when you don't apply
consistently two-tier. It is consistent, but it's two-tier consistent.
But in terms of fairness, and when something's not consistent, it causes outrage. And I hear you, and it's a very serious concern.
When people, I mean, I don't care, but when people call me a gammon online, I mean, that is a piece of racist abuse. It is a reference to the fact that older white guys can go slightly red in the face. It is a reference to the colour of my skin, isn't it? I don't see how it could be anything else. It's a reference to pinkness in the face of an older white man. If you phoned up the police and said, I've been racially abused, I've been called a gammon, they'll put the phone down. I mean, I wouldn't do it because I don't care. But the point is, it's not consistent.
You can't be racist against white people,
let me tell you, if someone called me a gammon and I called them the N-word and we both reported each other, I would be going to court and that guy would not be.
Yeah. But they claim it's because our white people are in power, but actually in London they're the minority in lots of big cities.
By the way, can we just deal with this?
And it's irrelevant anyway.
Can you just deal with this where you go, a minority cannot be racist to the majority, right? So apartheid South Africa was not racist then, because the minority being the white community, subjugated the black community. That, according to Lee Jasper and Ken Livingstone, is not racism. Now, I think of all the regimes, P.W. Porter was one of the more famous racists in history.
Yeah.
But
it's irrelevant.
It's nonsense. If you create a system where some people have more rights than others, and that is the position in Britain, then you have created at least to an extent created an apartheid system, and you have at least to an extent created a racist country. Yeah. Now you haven't done it to the extent that Adolf Hitler did. You haven't done it to the extent that the Palestinian Authority have. You haven't done it to the extent that the South Africans did. But it is a fundamental, irrefutable fact that if you are non-white, you enjoy more rights in the criminal justice system than you would enjoy if you were white. It's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, again, consistency is very important, and I think this is why the outrage has been prevalent, because the law has not been applied consistently, and I think anyone can be accused of racism. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're a minority or a majority. If you say something that is racist, it is, and you know, we have legal systems to prove that. But I do accept that this has not been applied consistently, and this is why I think we need to look. This inquiry needs to be done properly, thoroughly and independently to actually see what went wrong.
But what if all the police officers say what I would say? Hey, listen, you told us to do it. You took the call. You told us we were there to arrest a white guy for racially abusing somebody. There was no mention of stabbing. There was no mention of anything. Also, you told us that we have to believe people. I mean, I remember I had a friend of mine, right, who was accused of, this goes out in the morning, who was accused of R-A-P, APE, right? And at the end of the trial, when he was found not guilty, the police walked out and said, it's important for victims to understand they will be believed. No, it's important for people to understand they may not be believed, right? It's important in our society that if you wrongly accuse somebody, you will not be believed. But what has happened here is the spell has been cast on Hampshire police. The minute you say he's racially abused me, touched my turban, oh my God, grab your pearls, right?
I think I agree. I think people have lost and the authorities have lost the definition of innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost that. We quickly jump into assumption that this person has done this thing, this person has done that.
And the vow of the police when you join, I think it's still in there, without fear or favour. I think that's part of the vow, so they're breaking their oath.
I mean, actually, what I would do is look at potentially firing a significant number of the police. I'll tell you what President Saakashvili of Georgia did. Listen to this, you will love this. At the end of the Soviet Union, when Saakashvili became president, he fired every single police officer in the country, knocked down every police station and rebuilt them out of glass and brought in new police officers. And he basically said, if you don't have good police acting in a free and fair way and a consistent way, you don't have anything at all. And I think that's the position that we're in now. All you have to do is mention the word racism. But by the way, I've got some news for everybody. Race is self-defining, right? You self-define.
Yeah.
Now, the police have quotas, right? The police have quotas. So if they arrest, like, one black guy, they've got to get 3 white guys, OK? Tell them you're a Vietnamese boat person, right? The number of Vietnamese boat people in the UK is nowhere near even 0.1%. So if every time you get pulled over by the police, they say, what is your racial background? And you say, I'm a Vietnamese boat person, then what we can do is we can get those numbers up, and the stop and search and stopping in the cars, they will now have major problems because they will be done for discriminating against Vietnamese boat people. That's what I always do, by the way.
Well,
I do.
Is that legal advice?
I tell them I'm an Inuit.
Inuit,
yeah.
Well,
no. Look, if you are going to insult my intelligence
Works every time.
If you're going to insult my intelligence with a stupid question, I'll give you a stupid answer.
Yeah.
What is your racial background? My answer is Vietnamese boat person.
I got asked once if I was black.
No. On the serious note, if
yeah.
you can't look at me. If you give a toss what my racial background is, I object anyway. But B, if you look at me and can't tell, then I'll tell you I'm a Vietnamese boat person.
They asked me once, I said, are you black or white?
Should have said black.
I said, I don't know. So, the choice is yours. Depends whether I've been on holiday, doesn't it?
No, what you should have said, if they said, are you black or white, you should have said, I'm colourblind, I don't know.
Yeah, I do really. I still don't know. Anyway, let's go to the papers. It's Kyle today, isn't it? With breakfast Salem, Great Britain.
No, I'll tell you what we should do, Asher. Asher, look, it's quarter
I know
past.
what you're going to do.
Well, why don't we go to an early break
but let's
now?
give him a quick flash of the Soaraway Sun, and it's Prince Andrew with a bruised cheek.
Yes.
So don't go away. We'll be back with Prince Andrew's bruised cheek. What a shiner after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the paper review with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Mike Salem. And we've got the front page of this on, Asher. But
in
why,
stereo.
Why has Andrew Mountbatten Windsor got a big
Well, the
shiner?
story is disgraced. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. By the way, Mountbatten does mean Battenberg, which means mountain. Sports, so they invented the Battenberg cake, so they're not all bad. He sports a mystery shiny yesterday as he faces bruising revelations of money grabbing. He pocketed extra income from subletting cottages at his Royal Lodge mansion in Windsor. Despite paying no rent himself for 20 years, a government probe has found the shamed ex-Duke, 66, was seen with a huge bruise on his cheek near his Norfolk. And well, it's obviously what's happened. King Charles has found out and gone, where's that money going, sunshine? No, that's not what's happened, just to be clear. What do you think about Prince Andrew Shiner? What's happened to the poor guy?
Well,
has he fallen off his horse? Is that what's he...
Could be, but it does look quite a serious bruise.
It looks like he's had a left hand or
maybe he fell on his side, perhaps.
It looks like it could be a slap, though. It's right where someone would slap someone with the back of their hand. And has Prince Harry been over?
I'm not sure, actually.
They had a fight.
I have to say, before we go further on the general issue of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the Crown Estate owns Royal Lodge, and it rented it to him for one peppercorn per year, if claimed. And the fact that he sublet cottages for a large amount of money and pocketed it, not illegal, because he did rent the place, but may well have been against the terms and conditions.
Yeah, exactly,
But moreover, can you imagine getting a place for free from the taxpayer and then renting it out? It's so dodgy, isn't it?
It's not a good look.
Isn't that fraud, though?
No, I don't. It's probably not illegal. But it may well be against the... I mean, the problem is, if you breach the term of the lease, now you've been evicted, kind of what are they going to do, right? But I have to say, it's a pretty bad thing.
It's not a good look. It's not been going well for him, obviously, since everything's been going on.
The problem is with him, it seems to me, right, £250,000 a year sounds like a colossal sum of money, and it is. If all you are doing is using it for pocket money, if your whole social life is just literally having a drink with your mates at the local pub and going to these big state occasions that you're invited to as a prince, £250,000 is fantastic. You can live forever. It's brilliant. But the problem is with him, he was actually living with the jet set. So if you look at somebody like Prince William and Catherine, prime example, fundamentally, I know this sounds stupid, fundamentally they're an ordinary family who do an extraordinary job. You know, Prince William does not take his holidays on £1 billion yacht off the coast of Dubai. He just doesn't do that, right? He lives in the house that's been provided to him by the taxpayer. He sends his kids to a posh private school, not that unusual for middle-class people in Windsor, it has to be said, and then basically just lives a normal, sheltered life outside. So it's not as if he has to say, oh, you know, I need to fly first class to wherever. If he flies somewhere, he's doing it for his job. Whereas Prince Andrew was different. Yeah. Andrew was a party boy.
But also, you know, you look at the Queen and Prince Philip when they lived up north, you know, begins with B up in Scotland.
Balmoral.
When they were up in Balmoral, which was their own personal house, because Queen Victoria now and Albert bought it, they showed their kitchen. It just looked like any old person. They had cornflakes in this Tupperware. And it was all old stuff, you know. It was lovely to see that they're not like that. But, yeah, I mean, he goes to Tramp, doesn't he, where notoriously he doesn't sweat. Everyone else is sweating, but he doesn't. And there, I know, because someone... gin and tonic's 50 quid. So, you know, £250,000 doesn't get you very far.
I think there's a lot of weird decisions that he's made in his life. And not the Jeffrey Epstein allegations. But as an example, right, imagine you were him. Right. So first of all, he's left the military. Why did he do that? I'd have stayed in the military my entire life. Because at the end of the day, look, let's be honest, as a 45-year-old, I know he's a lot older than that now, as a 45-year-old royal, you know, he's not going to be doing a lot in the military. It's all going to be palm pressing and shiz like that anyway, right? But then the other thing is that one thing that I would not do, right? I have lived in a number of enormous mansions in my life, and what I've done is, you know how they split them up into flats, right? So then what you get is you get all the gardens and whatever, but you don't end up, you know, going out with a lawnmower for 4 days a week or whatever. I cannot understand why somebody in his position didn't do what every other royal does, which is give me a 3-bedroom flat in Kensington Palace, central London, good place, lots of space. That royal lodge was a stupid idea. What does he need a 30-room mansion
He likes
for?
the high life, doesn't he? He likes the higher things in life.
And I think both Harry and Andrew would have been better served in the military.
I think that's right.
They would have gone very far in the royal family.
They didn't have to do very much.
Disciplined. Well, I mean, some of them did. I mean, Andrew served in the Falkland War.
Well, you say that. I mean, I know someone served with him. The guy, what's his name? Nick. I'll remember his name. But he served with him in the Navy, and he said basically he did a job. He flew helicopters, and he would rescue troops who were in the water, or he'd take things around in the chopper. So
I think
Nick Reynolds. It was Nick Reynolds who was in Alabama 3.
Hang on a second. I think that's slightly unfair. First of all, some guy says whatever is slightly unfair. My understanding is...
confirmed by his commanding officer, who also
my understanding is that these guys in the helicopter were partially rescue helicopters, but that's mostly back in the United Kingdom. The aim was to confuse Exocet missiles into not hitting boats, and that means what you actually do is you put yourself in between boat and missile.
You can bet he didn't do that.
Well, but
they wouldn't be putting him in front of an Exocet.
No, hang on a second. Well, look, let's be fair. He's received a medal for doing it.
Of course.
I don't think it's very likely that the actual job of helicopter pilots was not done by him, and he did some other alternative.
He wouldn't have been in danger like the others. You know, I know his commanding officer. He works here actually sometimes, and when I told him what Nick Reynolds had told me, he went no comment, like with a knowing sort of. Well, they're not going to put him in danger.
Any job in the military has risks, as we have sadly learned. I mean, if you look at the main page here as well, the 3 military men and women who sadly perished.
Yeah, they're real heroes.
And that was in training as well, so it wasn't actually on active exercise. So when you do sign up for the military, there are risks. You know, you might die in training.
I remember 3 SAS trainers died in just training in the I think it was Snowdonia, just because of the heat of
to go for that, for him to go through that and Harry to go through that as well, fair enough. You know, you are putting your life at risk.
I have to say one thing. I object to the suggestions that his medals should be taken off him.
Yeah, no, of course.
I agree. It was way before all the allegations began or even happened, and, you know, he earned them, so I don't see why they should have been taken off him.
And I think it's also important to bear in mind that his medals are service medals. I don't think he got anything for valour or anything like that. He literally got them as service medals.
For turning up.
But I do want to... Well, turning up in a war is a big thing. But there is one other thing I want to say. There is a really odd situation with the Victoria Cross. Originally, the Victoria Cross was going to be an Order of Chivalry, like the Order of the British Empire, but in the end it became a medal. As a result of it being partly an Order of Chivalry and partly a medal, you can lose it if you behave in a way that is considered unbecoming. So that is to say, you can win a Victoria Cross, and then if you're convicted of any criminal offence later in life, you lose the Victoria Cross, and that has happened. I would get rid of that. I would turn round and say, look, you know, whatever you do in life, if you were in the Falklands, you deserve the Falklands Service Medal. If you did something so meritorious that you deserve the Victoria Cross, which Andrew didn't, then you get the Victoria Cross. And if later you get done for shoplifting, it's irrelevant to the medal. I don't believe... Now, that's very different to an Order of Chivalry, like the Order of the British Empire, but I do think that the Victoria Cross should not be taken off somebody. Because the idea that somebody's going to run into gunfire, save their entire platoon, and then, you know, one night get done for drunk and disorderly and lose the Victoria Cross over it, I think is silly.
Most Victoria Cross winners are dead.
Indeed.
When they get it.
Yeah, and I think, again, the consistency element needs to be applied. If there's an award or an honour that should only be given posthumously, that should be honoured, or otherwise it loses its value.
Of course.
Yeah, and by the way, the other thing about the Victoria Cross, every single one of them that has come up for auction since 1987 has been bought by the same person, Lord Ashcroft, and they're all in display in the Imperial War Museum. I've got to be honest with you, Lord Ashcroft, I know you're a good bloke.
Lord Richard Ashcroft.
But that gallery is the most boring thing I've ever... Because it's just a load of the identical medals. It's the same medal. Like, this is...
And they're even made from the same cannon.
Yeah, they are.
And then they go, because it's Ashcroft, Bittersweet Symphony's playing in the
It's got nothing to do.
No, nothing to do with that. The Daily Express, Kate shares in mum's joy. Princess of Wales claps with joy as young mum Claire Lorente rings the bell at the end of cancer treatment. Fantastic. Catherine congratulated a surprised Claire, 30, as she marked the emotional chemotherapy. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? So she's been cleared of cancer, gets to ring the bell at the place, and then Kate comes in. It's like a fairy tale. This was at the Christie Hospital in Manchester. Hugging tearful Claire and husband Pablo, the princess said, "Well done, you what journey." That's better than Bill Clinton turning up at your wedding.
I've got to be honest with you, she's genuinely happy. Now, look,
She does,
we don't know...
Well, she would know how it feels.
We don't know precisely what Princess Catherine did, but we know that she had some pre-cancerous cells and she had to have an operation on the abdomen.
Yeah.
Frankly, without being funny, you can guess what that is just off those details. But anyhow, look, she's really happy, and I think it's a really funny thing, actually, because it's exactly the same as with James Whale. It was awful that James Whale had cancer for all those years, but it did help society. A, raise loads of money for charity, but B, by talking about it, helped a lot of other people in their fight against cancer. So it's a really weird thing, isn't it?
And it is difficult to share your medical records publicly. You know, it's a private thing normally, but to say publicly that you have had cancer and then to try and live your life normally afterwards, and it is very difficult. So
yeah, we've got to wish well to the... I think there's 3 footballers who've been diagnosed with cancer this week. John Barnes, Kenny Dalglish, and Kevin Keegan, maybe, we think. But yeah, so good luck with their cancer treatment. Do you know what I always say about cancer? Most important thing you've got to bear in mind, this is what happened to James Whale. People thought James Whale was taking the mick in the end because he lived for that long. When they say you've only got 6 months to live, that's based on the treatment that's been approved today. On Monday, new treatment gets approved. Every single month, new treatments for cancer get approved in the United Kingdom.
And they can be wrong anyway with 6 months. They often are. It's a very, grey area. They don't know. I mean,
so you've got to keep...
Well, I think you've got to keep the positive will to carry on every day, no matter how difficult it is.
Yeah. James did that. He'd turn up to the show really up until the end, and it was like a tonic for him. Anyway, we've got to take a little break.
Yep.
We're with our friend Mike Salem. It's Salem's Lot. We're going through...
Salem's Lot. Very good.
Through... Do you like that? Yeah.
Very good. Great movie. I've watched it as well. Yes.
Yeah, isn't it scary? If you're listening in the morning, Mark Dolan is going to be here, not Jeremy Kyle, as I advertised earlier. Yes, that's right. Thanks, guys, for your show that's not as good as mine. 0344 499 1000. I do a lot more revision than you. Thanks, Mark. Get out. You got your show in half an hour. It's Andre Nash. We'll be back with Salem's Lot and the papers in 2 minutes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is a press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Mike Salem. And yeah, Mike, you had something that you thought was going to be a big piece of news, perhaps in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I thought it might be worth mentioning. I don't think the papers had time to cover it in time, but Trump will be announcing 12.5% tariff on 60 countries. The UK is one of them, over forced labour. That's his reasoning.
And what is it at the moment then? Nothing?
At the moment,
10%?
well, at the moment, the Supreme Court said it's unlawful to do that. Right. So, as a response to that, he said, "Okay."
He used a different way, didn't he?
Indeed. Yeah. So,
levying taxes has to be approved by Congress, which he hadn't done, and therefore he's had to come back with a different mechanism.
Yeah, and he's citing concerns over forced labour. So,
what is the specifics of the allegation against the UK? Are there any details on it?
Not in specifically, but the point is we import Chinese products which are being produced under forced, and of course
look at electric cars. I mean, they send kids down mines to get these rare earth minerals in Africa.
Yeah. And that's
Chinese, obviously. They've bought Africa, haven't they?
How do you, Mike? Just a matter of interest, and forgive my ignorance here, but I'm still struggling to work out how do we know where a product comes from. So, as an example, if I buy a ready meal from Marks and Spencer's or anywhere, you've got spices from India, you've got chicken from probably the Netherlands, you've got pasta that might have been made in Italy, you've got. How do we work out what
peas from Portugal?
If
I made that ready meal in the UK and exported it, what is the country of origin?
Yeah, I mean the supply chain nowadays in the globalized world has become very diverse. So you might actually do a salad in the UK, but the tomatoes will be from Italy.
But when they put it together, they can just put the Union Jack on. You know what I mean?
So when you bring it all together, and then it said made in the UK, so that's the value added to it. And you try and source the cheapest products because you try and keep your product as low as possible so you can compete with the market. Now, China is a big producer, so many things that we buy come from China. So, I mean, Trump knows that, which is why I think he's imposed this tariff to sort of try and get these countries to negotiate again.
I'm going to make a comment which, on the face of it, is going to sound stupid, but I mean it as a very serious point about global economics. Right? If I want to make a roast dinner for my family, I'll tell you where I source the ingredients. Tesco. Right. Now, the reason I make that point is because there's very, very few people, unless you're talking about something that might be quite sophisticated engineering, who do anything other than go to their supplier. Right, if as an example, if as an example I wanted a printer, I would go to the guys who supply ink in the UK, I would go to the guys who supply paper in the UK, and I would go to the guys who supply printing machines in the UK. The fact a cog was made in Bangladesh is not something that's going to be on my radar, and so I just wonder. I mean, if as an example, let me think about this. If the cornstarch in the gravy that I made for you came from the United States of America or it came from China, how would I know and why would I care? But of course, when you then start talking about putting tariffs on products, then it becomes almost impossible.
Exactly, and I think he's done it on purpose because his real game plan is to impose tariffs and try and reset things again. And if he cares so much about forced labour in China, he was in China on a state visit 2 weeks ago. Why didn't he raise that issue? But he didn't. So I think this is just a mechanism for him to try and leverage that tariff situation again.
One thing that worries me, Mike, about Donald Trump and his tariffs is, first of all, look, I have some sympathy with saying, OK, you've put tariffs on me, I'm going to put tariffs on you, I'll drop mine if you drop yours.
Mate.
But I can understand that. But it sounds like Donald Trump quite likes the money as well. So look, if you were putting a 60% tariff on my cars, I would go, right, screw you, I'm putting a 60% tariff on the products that we import from you, in the hope of dropping the tariffs.
Yeah.
Donald Trump seems to quite like the tariffs and thinks he wants the money.
Yeah, and I mean, that
worries me.
Yeah, I think tariffs are very effective as destabilizing things, but they are inflationary, so the cost will pass on to consumers. We will all feel it, and even when we retaliate, because if we retaliate, we're exporting less things, which means we're not earning as much. So if we're going to put it in basic terms, retaliatory tariffs might look good politically, but economically we all do feel the burden.
Of course, the slight problem with tariffs, particularly for somewhere like the United Kingdom, is the assumption that there's an alternative. So if you go, well, I'll tell you what we'll do, we will put on a 60% tariff on all mobile phones from China. But there are no mobile phones that are not from China. I mean, OK, some iPhones are not from China.
Well, no, they are made in China.
Not very many.
I mean, the thing is, that's the point he's making. If we started doing our own tellies, they wouldn't be 400 quid, they'd be £4,000. So when I grew up, everything was made in Britain. The cars were made in Britain, your kitchen utensils were made in Britain, your food, a lot of it was grown in Britain. Everything, your stereo was actually made, your TV was made in Britain. And now we don't even have if we wanted to bring it back, we couldn't. We haven't got the skills. China's got millions of people with micro skills, and we can't compete now.
This is why if you want to put up tariffs and encourage made-in-Britain products, you've got to deregulate, you've got to encourage the market to compete, to create, and make our own products that can compete against these things. Because at the moment, if we want to produce...
We've got the skills, though. We can't do... We've got millions of people who do micro
We've got to train
electronics.
People, but we don't do that.
But we couldn't train the amount of people. They've done it over 50 years, the Chinese, and they've got millions of people in factories that can use and do these micro, circuitry.
Specialisation, yeah. Well,
but if you look at the textile industry of Lancashire, what happened... First of all, we brought unskilled labour over from Pakistan and Bangladesh, and very quickly, said unskilled labour, or at least a percentage of them, worked out that they could make the garments cheaper in Pakistan and Bangladesh, which is why you've got things like Primark, where you can buy a T-shirt probably without slave labour, probably without child labour for £2, because it's quite a simple design and whatever. Look, that is part of the market. I don't believe that children's clothes should cost 20, as Asher said, should cost 20 times as much because we want to make them in Lancashire. But we are reliant on things. And what worries me is the only thing our economy seems to ever produce is financial services. And I worry, and Mike, maybe I'm wrong about this, that what we are is a country with nothing in it other than owning the financial capital of the world.
Well, indeed. I mean, London accounts for 22% of the country's GDP. So,
wow.
There's clearly something wrong there. I mean, obviously, it's great that London's producing so much. I welcome that. But obviously, the rest of the country also needs to produce. And we have relied on financial services. And I think it's just time for us to encourage production in the UK. We need to let the government to have a laissez-faire approach, hands-off business, hands-off industry, allow us to actually create businesses.
But there have been some notable successes. So there are some, as an example, let me think of two really good but very different examples. Specialist manufacturing in things like aerospace. Remember the £40 million military export to Israel, which I'm convinced is like 4 bolts that go on an F-15 fighter. But that specialist engineering in Airbus, within Airbus and outside of Airbus, remains a big thing. But there is a new industry which I think is really, really exciting. And it is English sparkling wine.
Oh, yes.
Which now companies like Nye Timber have literally started beating the French at their own game. By the way, many of these companies are being bought up by the French. But the reason I give the example of English sparkling wine as a great industry for us to think about is because it's low volume, high margin. Yep. Right? So look, at the end of the day, it's not the cheap plonk that's 50p. A bottle of Nye Timber, I think, retails for about £35 a bottle. It's money at that. It's not a bargain.
It's exactly the same soil as the Champagne region, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
but when we're talking about that, that is not us competing to make the 5 for a pound lighters, which we're never going to defeat the Chinese on. But when you're talking about high quality, small volume products, we should be thinking about those.
I mean, the French are buying up land. French winemakers are buying up land in the UK as the weather gets warmer. They are tempted by the prospects, and there are a few industries like that. You look at the aerospace. Buckinghamshire is quite good at that.
Yes, that's right.
The F1 stuff, motor racing. We are the home of most F1 clubs.
Well, also, it has to be said, satellite technology.
Indeed.
Inmarsat was made very famous by MH370. But the UK aerospace industry is absolutely huge.
Well, F1, I mean, we're still the best automotive. Ferrari buy components from us all, and they're all from little workshops in like the Black Country and up north.
Oh, there.
And these are making the cogs for the Formula One cars. And
Exactly.
And it's the same with audio equipment. We make the very best high-end stuff, and that's what we need to concentrate on, because we're not going to be able to compete with the Far East.
And the biggest industry, of course, that we have as well is filmmaking.
Money laundering.
Filmmaking. So, 23% of movies made last year were filmed in Buckinghamshire.
Is that because of tax reasons?
Exactly, but that's the point that I'm talking about, is because we give a tax break. We have, tax regimes here that attract people away from Hollywood into the UK.
I have to say to you, that long-term thing, which David Cameron and George Osborne were keen on, the EIS, tax deductions and whatever for filmmaking, when I made this film about boxing, it's an independent production made by Magnificent Films, which is an independent company. But they happened to be filming at Longcross, which is the former household cavalry tank, training place or whatever. What Netflix are building there is simply astonishing. So there's Longcross North and Longcross South, which are two different campuses to make films on. I will tell you, I got dropped off at reception at Longcross South, I think it was, and it took me 25 minutes to walk to the studio that we were filming in. Just vast, Star Wars and all this going on. The amount of money being made by the UK film industry. And it's these big films. We were filming in the studio that had previously been used by Tom Cruise to do all of his practice for Mission Impossible. It's all made in the UK.
And Hollywood's on its back now. It's just the studios are empty.
Indeed. And now we've got, Marlow Film Studios, for example, in Buckinghamshire, which have got planning permission, and they're building on that, and it's going to generate £1 billion in the local economy.
Paramount,
regeneration. And you've got Bedfordshire as well. We've got some great
studios have had a massive expansion. You'll remember them from the Hammer Horror.
Oh, well.
Yeah, look.
Indeed.
But once again, creative. I mean, look, the UK has always been huge in the creative industries, whether that be music, whether that be film or whatever. But there's a big gap between Passport to Pimlico and what we're doing now. I mean, I don't think the British film industry was on its backside for probably about 30 years. But it was
still going. Ealing Studios, I think, isn't it?
Just about.
Yeah.
Much diminished.
Not being Passport to Pimlico.
I think the reason why Ealing Studios are not Ealing Studios anymore is because Ealing's not as out of town as it was in the 1950s.
And the BBC owned it for quite a long time, but now I think it's independent.
But there are industries like that.
Indeed. And we need to encourage them by, allowing them to flourish and not choking on them by, increasing taxes or complicating regulation, making it harder to employ people. So, if you introduce employer national insurance contribution, then you hike it up. You're not going to encourage people
let's just be clear. What we did with the British film industry, straight up, was we allowed people to tax deduct the whole thing. So that means if you invest £1 in a British film, it's 100% tax deductible, which means if you're a 40p taxpayer, you would have got 60p, but instead you've got £1's worth of shares in the film. Now look, some people will say the taxpayer lost out on money, but when you start looking at the places that you've listed, the place that I've seen, the government getting out of people's pockets, British people are able to stand on their own 2 feet. We're not all just, social workers or deserving cases of social workers.
We're pioneers. We excel in excellence. No country has invented more in the Industrial Revolution. The modern world, the World Wide Web comes from... Anyway, we've got to take a break. There's so much we could list.
Hey, by the way, that the hyperlink, which was invented by what was it? Tim Berners-Lee.
Sir Tim Berners-Lee.
The hyperlink remains one of the most important inventions of our lifetime. You can click on the word and it goes to another web page.
And he gifted it for free. Anyway, it's Salem's lot. We're going through the papers. Mark Dolan is after the news if you're listening in the morning. Yes, that's right. 0344 499 1000, because it's all about your calls in the next portion. It's me and Andre. We'll be back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, I have got my phone out, and the reason is because Asher and I, put so much good stuff on social media. You really should follow it, at Virtual Ash.
At Andre J.P. Walker.
And also, please do follow Talk itself on Twitter. The Twitter feed is quite a good way of doing it. You can you just search Talk TV.
Have you got one?
I do. I atted you both beforehand to try and encourage people to watch us tonight. So
What is it? Show the dog and a rabbit. What is it?
What my Twitter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
You don't even know your own Twitter.
Well, it's my full name, Mike Salem, and then 001. I wanted
Nice.
007.
Well,
but
why
that
did
was
you have to
taken.
look at your phone if you knew it?
Oh, well, I thought I wanted to show you like that, but show my nice.
You can show us if you want.
I wanted to show you my photo in New York. I quite like it.
Oh, you've been in New York?
Yeah, I was.
When
in
were
New
you
York.
in New York?
I was there in November last year.
Tell us about it, because was Mamdani, he wasn't there.
And it was a week before he got elected, so that was me on
So people were
7th
optimistic.
Avenue.
Oh, that's
yes,
lovely.
yeah, very nice.
There he is.
So yeah, I very much enjoyed it, and they love British people. So they love us. They think we're clever.
I know. Yeah,
I've noticed.
Oh, I love your accent.
I've noticed how in America there's not the same culture of taking the pee out of people that there is in Britain. Right, they're always really nervous about saying something stupid because they think of us as culturally superior. Right, now look, they know
true.
they know they've created the richest and most powerful country on earth, but individually we do intimidate them. It's like,
They don't have our heritage.
Well, I mean, we have a lot in common. I've never been to the West Coast, but the East Coast, oh, goodness me, I mean, it feels like I'm in in England. It's
when
incredible.
you go by the Twin Towers, there's an old church that was right opposite, and it's just an English church from 1800s. I mean, and the graveyard in it, right opposite the Twin Towers. Well, obviously they're not there anymore, but the church is. It survived. The Daily Star, the grand old brews of York, and this is again that story. He's got a shiner. Andrew Mountbatten, a Windsor. Kerching, Andy Windsor sports a shiner. As it's revealed, he made a fortune renting out Royal Lodge cottages while paying a low rent. Cops are investigating his links to sex trafficking.
by the way, somebody's having a go at me about Star Wars. Let me just tell you one thing. Right, Darth Vader, whichever way you look at it, was a black former slave who with a disability, right? He had no arms and legs. He was born into slavery and he was black, right? And he was made the second most powerful man in the Empire and also got a peerage, Lord Vader.
Indeed.
And also, he was the Green Cross Code man. We had him on the show once. John, what was his name? John. Anyway, he was the Green Cross Code man. They said they'd use his voice, George Lucas, but he had David Prowse, but he had a Bristol accent, so he was like, use it, and he goes, yeah, don't worry, we're going to use your voice. And he went, they didn't use his voice.
Okay, so the gallery is saying he was white underneath. Listen.
Oh, you can't say that.
Anakin Skywalker was white. Darth Vader was black. Right? A, his face was black, and B, his voice was
it was his helmet, wasn't it?
His voice was the voice of a black man.
It was like he had a bucket on his head.
But
James Earl Jones,
in any case, if you are not on the side of the Sith, right? Oh, the Jedi. Oh, we're this order of elitists. Oh, come on. Right. Bear in mind. Let's just be clear on one thing. The Jedi were almost all human, whereas in fact the Empire was a much more diverse place than the Jedi, sort of Republic. Also, let me just be clear. Clearly, people were promoted on merit, because whilst the Jedi were elitist, Darth Vader had come from nowhere.
He was just misunderstood.
But did you ever see that multicultural bar they all went in, and they were all the different aliens?
The Cantina Band. Yeah, that's quite good.
It got good fun, didn't it? If only that's how multiculturalism works.
My favourite fake pub was, remember the pub in Battlestar Galactica with the three-boobed woman?
Was it? Oh, that was in that Schwarzenegger, Total Recall.
No, I thought it was
it's probably
it was the three-faced woman that was
that might have been
Battlestar
the
Galactica.
three-breasted woman's in Total
Yeah,
Recall.
that's right.
But we also had tariffs in Star Wars as well, so it's very representative of what's going on.
As I say, the Emperor gave a peerage, a seat in the House of Lords, to a disabled black former slave, Darth Vader.
Well, how tolerant of him.
Absolutely right. absolutely right.
And Buck Rogers, the robot, had a speech impediment going.
And also, can I tell you something else?
Equal opportunities.
Tell you something else. Think about this, right? He was not the Right Honourable, the Baron Skywalker of Tatooine. He was Lord Vader, which means he was at the very least a Viscount, right? And we also know it's a hereditary peerage because if his son kills him, his son inherits the peerage, right? So look, he's given him a hereditary peerage.
Incredible. You've given it a great deal of thought. I love it.
I'm giving it.
You know, Alec Guinness.
Can you imagine he was actually Anakin Skywalker, comma, the Right Honourable, the Viscount Vader of Tatooine.
Yeah, well.
Do you know Alex Guinness, who was in the film notoriously, he didn't really want to do it, and he said, all right, I'll do it, but, you know, I'll have to have a percentage. He got like 2% of the whole film, so he made more than he ever did in his career from Star Wars. And that's when Marlon Brando decided to do Superman, because he saw our... Alec Guinness use the Force, Luke. Anyway,
I thought, what's his name? Did a brilliant impersonation of him. What was his name? Oh, Train Spotting Kid. He didn't. Ewan McGregor.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, because he had to play Obi-Wan Kenobi or Ben
right.
Kenobi.
Oh, right. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Right. Okay. Let's go. Look, I just want to say one thing, because we are talking about all of the issues around the by-election. We're not going to go into the by-election in any great detail. Can I just say one thing as a matter of principle? I do believe that they should have allowed Restore into that debate on Question Time. And I'll tell you the reason. It is very, very difficult because in any by-election, there's loads of candidates, right, and you've got to be fair to all of them. But at the moment, Restore are polling third. Now, there's only been 2 polls, and the polls may well be wrong, and I just want to beg you one thing. Vote with your conscience if you're from Makerfield. Vote with your conscience. Do not vote on what the opinion polls say, but it is a bit silly to put somebody in who's into Question Time who's polling at 1%, and by the way, that guy did pretty well, but somebody's polling at 1% and leave out somebody who's polling at 8%.
Right, I've got to go through the candidates. So we got Jake Austin from the Lib Dems, Count Binface from the Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham Labour Party, Dan Clark Libertarian Party, John Dyer Independent, Ed Gemmell Climate Party, Paul Gould, no relation Independent, Alan Howling Lord Hope, the official Monster Raven Looney Party, Robert Kenyon Reform UK, Robert Pownell, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Tory Party. See what you've made me do?
By the way, I will tell you one thing that is amusing. I knew. Do you know how the BBC always on Question Time go, we are here in, and they go, the University of Sussex.
Yes.
Well, they couldn't say that last night. Well, of course, you know the reason for that.
Right,
because half of these people have got geographical names, right? So the Conservative candidate, Michael Winstanley, has got no connection whatsoever to the venue, which is called Winstanley College in the village of Winstanley, where the Winstanley family come from. And you know, because some people are stupid, they will have thought that, they went to his actual place of business or something. But anyway, it's fair to say that some of them. But look, I want to be serious about that. I think it was a great shame. Clearly, not every candidate can appear on absolutely everything, and we do. Asher and I do oppose the Ofcom rules because we think they are overly draconian. Yeah. But there you have it.
It's not even online, so it's
Indeed.
ridiculous.
I think it would be good for the BBC to explain the rationale, or perhaps put their guidelines publicly, just publish them and say
I'm sure what they're going to say.
Yeah.
I'm sure what they're going to say is this. 2 things. Number one, I think the BBC don't go by opinion polls. I think they will say, we've gone by who did well last time in Makerfield and who did well in the last parliamentary by-election, which was in Gorton and Denton. And therefore, if you didn't run in either of those 2, I think you would not have been considered.
So you're right. I think I remember now. They mentioned something about previous results, including locals.
Because the opinion poll might well be wrong.
But then you can sample it. If you look at Great Yarmouth, well, it was a Restore pretty much demolition. So, you know, if you're looking at that
particular area.
Anyway, look, we've got to just say goodbye to the morning people. Mark Dolan is coming up next. Yes, join me after the news. Anyway, we're back in the room. with
By the
Mark
way, the
Salem.
funny thing is somebody's got in touch saying, my God, Longcross didn't know there was anything there. Neither did I. I used to live in Ascot and I used to get the train and I used to think, what goes on in Longcross? Because it was just this train station. But of course, there's this massive Netflix thing. I mean, I wasn't working for Netflix, but it's amazing. And I mean, amazing that they're investing so much money.
Any final thoughts, Mike? We've got 30 seconds. Come on.
Vote with your conscience.
Yeah.
Oppose tariffs. Keep your money, save it, invest it. You know, it's a pretty tumultuous world. Let's stay grounded, keep common sense, and
cool,
don't
man.
get reactive.
Mike Salem, thank you so much. I'll tell you what we're going to do. Are we doing the Asher call? Asher
Oh,
thing?
yeah, Corey, you can ask me any advice on anything, DIY, health, love, and Matthew Burke from America are coming up talking about Trump. Matthew Hurt, sorry. But stay with us, 03444991000. It's all about your calls and the odd guest. Back next.